Imagine you're stood in front of a classroom of the next generation of engineers. What advice would you give them and what skills do they need to succeed?
The biggest advice I could give would be embrace failure.
What can we do better as an industry to inspire more kids to be engineers?
I think it's really important for large companies to engage with schools, find the time to just share their experiences.
Take us right back to the start, before Siemens. Where did you grow up? What did you want to be when you were older?
Well, obviously it was before horse and carts. My first exposure to manufacturing was through my father. On the Sundays, he used to go down and set the boiler up. He'd take me with him. The factory was completely empty. So I spent all day playing on the rollers and going down the slides. Health and safety would have had a field day.
What's the hardest thing about managing people?
If an individual is doing something out of the norm, don't just think that you're just fed up with the job and you want to leave. I made that mistake and told somebody off, and I found out it was a big problem in their family.
What's next for you? Do you think about retirement?
Probably should have retired about 2 years ago.
A huge thank you to this week's sponsor, Interact. Interact is a Made Smarter initiative and ESRC funded network that provides free, people-centric insights to support manufacturing businesses interested in innovating with digital technology. You can find more about Interact in the bio. Please click the link. Also, a huge thank you to you for watching. Please like, subscribe. It helps us grow the channel.
Can everybody hear okay? So, I'm Alan Norbury. I'm Chief Technologist at Siemens Digital Industries division. Shall I go through my whole background when I started? Or?
No, let's wait a little bit. What's your current
So my
position?
current role, I work in the space of innovation. So I work with universities, high value manufacturing catapult centres. Siemens are probably one of the very few organisations in the UK that provide technology and also manufacture technology. So it's quite diverse in what we manufacture in the UK, from variable speed drives in Congleton where I started my apprenticeship, to trains. We started manufacturing trains in Goole, MRI scanners, subsea connectors. The range is massive, quite diverse from what we do. But the technology that we provide other companies, we also use in our own factories. There's a name for that, but I'm going to say we drink our own champagne.
So what does a normal day look like for you?
A lot of travelling. I spend a lot of time on various advisory boards. So I sit on the advisory board at the Technology Advisory Board at the Manufacturing Technology Centre, the MTC in Coventry, and the programme board there. The Advanced Manufacturing Research Centre, AMRC in Sheffield, I sit on the advisory board there. And WMG, we've been doing a lot with them. The reason we're engaged with catapults is from both sides of our business. It's manufacturing to look at new technologies that Siemens don't do everything, believe it or not. So there's some things that we don't do, like robotics. We may not have the skills to be able to adopt it, but we know we need to use it in our factories. So we'll work with the catapult centre to work out, is it a cobot we need, is it a robot, what size should it be, and how should we program it. But then we'll connect it into our Siemens automation platform and our software platform and our communications platform. So, and then also we work with catapults in terms of showcasing our technology on projects that the other members will be doing. And then the other touch point for us is obviously sitting on those boards, it gives me the opportunity to work with very senior people from within our customer base that maybe our sales guy would love to have access to, but I speak to them on a regular basis. So it's really interesting. I mean, it was only last week I was in Invergordon in Scotland, Inverness, speaking to the CEO of White & Mackay, because they use Siemens automation. So very, very diverse, lots of different industries, and really enjoyable.
Okay, that's the formalities out the way. Take us right back to the start, before Siemens. It's a long time ago. Where did you grow up? What did you want to be when you were older?
Well, obviously it was before horse and cart. So I was born in Macclesfield in Cheshire. So I grew up in the hills around the outskirts of Macclesfield. Never ever at home. Always out playing in the fields or up the hills. I think my first exposure to manufacturing was through my father. So my father was an aerospace engineer initially, in the RAF, working on Spitfires, Hurricanes, Lancaster bombers, etc. So that's towards the end of the Second World War. Worked at Woodford for a while, still working aircraft, and then he became the chief engineer at a company called Friedlands, who do doorbells. You may recognise the company as they are today. Anyway, on the Sundays, he used to go down and set the boiler up ready for the week. He'd take me with him, and the factory was completely empty. So I spent all day playing on the rollers and going down the slides, and health and safety would have had a field day, but that was my first exposure to manufacturing, playing on all the rollers and the slides. But yeah, it was great to see, you know, what my father did there, and it was really, really interesting, some of the jobs that he did.
So did you always want to be an engineer?
I think when I was young, I wanted to be a fireman. Okay. Like most young kids did. Then I wanted to run my own business.
Anything in particular?
Not particularly, no. I just knew I wanted to run my own business. I had some relatives that ran their own business, a restaurant, and it's really, really hard work, day and night, you know. But then I think the next jobs that I had before I started with Siemens was I was a paper boy, I was a milk boy, getting up really early in the morning, doing the milk round, then going to school, biking to school after that. And then my father had a lot of good contacts, and he knew the owner of a metalworking company, and I managed to spend the summer holidays working with a metal company called Metalfold, and they used to build ducting, and I worked there all summer with these guys. Obviously as a youngster they pulled my leg a few times, sending me off with tartan paint and a skirting board ladder and all the sort of things they do. But you learn from that, you know, and I learned what engineering was about, or that type of engineering, and I really enjoyed it.
Do you have a favourite memory?
Yeah, but it wasn't anything to do with work. One of the guys had a motorbike and a sidecar, and he took me up in the hills on it. I always remember that. I don't know why. But, yeah, I think it was the fact that I enjoyed it because it wasn't theory. You weren't sitting down writing things. You were out and about doing things and getting your hands dirty. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. Yeah.
So then you went into Siemens as an apprentice.
Started as
HNC, HND.
Well, I applied for 3 companies. One was called Simon Engineering, the other was ICI, and the other was Siemens. I failed the health test with ICI because of asthma, and they wouldn't let me do an apprenticeship there. And I had a choice between these other 2 companies, and my father said you should go for Siemens. There was about 90 applicants for 9 applications, nine apprenticeships, and I was lucky enough to get through. There was one reason I think I got through, and it wasn't my qualifications, it was the fact that I was also in the Sea Scouts. So I became a patrol leader, so I learnt skills of working with other people, managing other people, collaboration with other people. So when I went through the interview process, the things that they asked me I'd already done in the Sea Scouts. So that got me through, and it was pretty much the same when my son applied at Bentley. He was applying for a degree apprenticeship, and he was in the Air Training Corps, and he got a Gold Duke of Edinburgh award. So all those are things you do outside of your academic qualifications are the things that help you get through the interview. Yeah. You know, so that's something I've learned over the years. So yeah, started a 5-year apprenticeship with Siemens. Started at Crewe College, so the first year full-time at college, doing the ONC. Then after that, it was working in our factory in Connaughton where we used to build switchgear panels. And then it was 1 day a week and 1 evening a week at college. And did that for 5 years in total. So we did ONC, HNC. Thoroughly loved it. So worked in the sheet metal works. You know, I spent many a happy hour deburring holes. We had a paint shop, we had a wiring shop, we had a test shop, and what you do as an apprentice, you work around all those different areas. Yeah. And I learned a hell of a lot. A lot of the skills I learned then, I still use today at home, to be honest with you. And then I moved into R&D as well, printed circuit boards, worked with a tool maker called Arthur. He was amazing. He could make anything out of metal, really, really good. So yeah, I learned a lot from him. And then I ended up in the low voltage control gear sales area, selling push buttons, relays, contactors, air circuit breakers, etc. And I enjoyed it, but I was looking for new challenges. And they brought out we had a separate automation team, which I wasn't part of, and they brought out a new PLC, programmable logic controller, that was a relay replacement. So one of the challenges we had, quite often most panels were built with relays. So the way they automate it, they'd have separate timers, separate counters, and you'd interlock the relays to do the logic. And it was quite difficult for those people to migrate from these wiring diagrams to writing code into a PLC. So we brought out a PLC called the S5105R, and it was a relay replacement. So you could wire it on the screen and it would generate the code for the PLC. And it was perfect for migrating those people across. The problem was it overlapped with what the automation team were doing, because we pretty much had two solutions for the same application, but slightly different. So I ended up with two bosses, one in automation and one in LV. And the guy in the LV department was a German guy. It was over 3 years that he was doing that. And he was a stickler for timing. So everything I did, he wrote down continuously, day in, day out. And I got to the point where I couldn't handle having two bosses like this. So I went to HR and I said, I've had enough, I'm leaving. And I came out. A guy tapped me on the shoulder who said, I believe you're interested in automation and you're leaving. I said, yeah. I said, would you like to work in automation? I said, yeah, but who are you? And he was about to become the general manager of automation. And he said, would you like to work for me? I said, yeah. So just been at the right place at the right time, I think, moved me into automation.
Okay. So Siemens, I mean, everyone's probably assumed that you've been there forever. I read that you've had 11 different roles at Siemens. Do you have a favourite?
The one I've got now.
Okay, it's the easy answer. Your boss might watch this. Why?
Well, today I went through a period where I managed people. I wouldn't say I was bad at managing people, but it was a lot around reporting, doing dialogues with people, basically speaking to people on a daily basis that needed that phone call and reassuring. I really had a passion for working on machines and customers, having more of a technical engagement. And I was missing that really. So when I had the opportunity to work with the catapult centres, I welcomed it with two arms. And I thoroughly enjoy it. I enjoy the collaboration. And turning something very, very new into something that will add value to the British industries was really, really, fulfilling. Yeah. Really enjoy it. I'm pretty much my own boss as well.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get into the nitty gritty, so people understand you better. That's bad for you. That's in my ears. What's the hardest challenge you've faced personally? How did you overcome it?
Well, I think the hardest challenge psychologically, I was an application manager for 17 years, managing a team of people, UK and Ireland. And at the same time, I was like deputy head of support, technical support. So our head of technical support retired early, and I applied for his job. I assumed it was mine for the taking, sort of thing. I got to the second interview, and I must admit I didn't prepare properly because I thought it was my job. And guess what? I didn't get the job. And what was worse is a guy that had worked for me for 10 years became my boss. So it's quite a bizarre situation. And I must admit I didn't react great to it, the situation. And our MD at the time was brilliant. He said, look, take some time off. We'll speak to you in a few days and we'll look at what other opportunities there are for you. The guy was Brian Holiday, our MD today. And then it was him said, how do you fancy working at the catapult centres? So I did. So I had two jobs for about a year. And at the end of that, he said, well, what do you prefer? I said, well, working at the catapult centres, innovation. So I changed jobs, And it's probably the best thing that ever happened to me. So out of a situation where I was psychologically challenged to an opportunity that actually is far better for me than the other job that I could have had, worked out better. So I think the learning from that is, you should try and embrace failure when it happens, and try and make the best out of it. Just fail and carry on, fail fast, learn from it and carry on. So that's a big learning I had from that. That was a psychological challenge. I think technical challenges, probably the biggest one was when I used to do a lot of work with Philip Morris and cigarette making machines. So they make about 12,000 cigarettes a minute, so they're really, really fast machines. And I was asked to, I would like to go to Poland to fix a Hingeley packing machine. When I was young, I'd go anywhere. It doesn't matter what the problem is, I'm just going to go. So I jumped on a plane, went over there, tried to get into this factory. There's no proper entrance, there's bricks everywhere. Walked in. You go and meet the managing director. First thing he does, takes the passport off you, says you don't get your passport back until you fix the problem. No mobile phones. The only communication was a fax machine in the managing director's office, and he wants to see what you're doing. And you're stuck in this machine until you fix it. Simple as that. I did fix it, but it put a lot of pressure on me, to say the least. So yeah, that was technically challenging as well.
So you mentioned your boss working with you, to get you out of a sticky situation. Was there any mentors in your early years that you lent on that supported you?
Yeah, I think the early years, definitely my father. He was a proper engineer. I mean, I'm a chartered engineer, but I'm not a proper engineer like my father was. He was a plumber, he was an electrician, he was a mechanic, he was a tool maker, he was a heating engineer, he was a builder, he was a carpenter. He could pretty much turn his hand to anything. He pretty much built the house we was in, did all the electrics, did all the plumbing, all the heating. I'd love to have those skills. I mean, today, some of the things he did with cars, you probably can't do anymore because they're all electric and you all got ECUs that are hard to change. But yeah, he was a proper engineer, and he taught me a lot of things. I remember once I had a Triumph Toledo, and I was going up the M6 on holiday with my apprentice mates, and in the fast lane, the big end one, and I managed to get it into the side of the road, rang my father up, came up, towed me back. My mates carried on the holiday. They hitched out, took me home, and within the weekend, all the engine was apart. By Monday, it was all working again. Not many people could do that.
No, my dad's the same actually. I think I mentioned to you earlier that there's a joke in our family that the reason me and my brother are useless at everything is because my dad just couldn't stand watching us not do it right. Oh, yeah. So he just did everything himself, which then, that's why I was selling flashing lights and drives and stuff, because I didn't know how to actually do stuff. There's a topic that I talk about in every podcast. I know you're involved in it, and it's skills gap. A lot of people here will feel the pain of skills gap, and it's only going to get worse. So what can we do better as an industry to inspire more kids to be engineers?
I think quite often people make their maybe unconscious decision to what sector you're going into when you're at school, and what interests you the most. So I think it's really important for large companies to engage with schools. I know there's a lot of people in the North East. My friend Dave Bartel from Expert, he's doing a lot of work with schools, sharing some of the experiences that we do in manufacturing. And I think it's really important that large manufacturers find the time to just share their experiences. You think of engineering maybe at that age as being dirty, greasy environment. Well, actually it's not. I mean, in our factory, we use virtual reality to build things, so it's like the gaming industry almost, so it's not a dirty, greasy environment as it used to be. So getting that perception over to youngsters is something really important. Managing the levy correctly. I mean, billions of pounds from the levy, that unused levy funds, just goes back into the treasury. Crazy. So we need to make it easier for SMEs to have access to it and use it in lots of different ways. Not just in one way, but several ways, like upskilling, for example, So some of the best people we have in our factory are ex-operators that later on in life, maybe when they were younger, they don't have the right opportunities later on in life, then they decide they want to develop the skills. So and we encourage that, and then they can go through, take degrees, and they add so much value to our business because they've got the hands-on practical experience on the shop floor, but also the academic experience as well, and they can share that with apprentices and graduates in our organisation. So, yeah, better use of the levy. The one thing I spend a lot of time doing is working with university students as well, because a lot of the projects they do quite often have no value to the UK economy. You know, they do the project and it gets forgotten about. So I try to work with some of those students as saying, well, can you make it more applicable so it can be used in industry afterwards, rather than that time being wasted. So I quite enjoy doing that sort of thing. So I spend a lot of time at universities. I'm visiting professor at Sunderland University and also Nottingham University. And it's to help them adapt their projects and use the correct technology as well. Rather than cheap and cheerful things that if you put it on a machine it'll fall to bits, use industrial technology as well on some of the projects. So when it does go into industry, it hits the road running, it's ready to go.
Yeah. I have a question that I ask whenever I get into this, because I now go to every event and see all these panels, and it's a lot of talk. And the question I always ask people is, do we really care? Do we care enough? Is it painful enough for us as a manufacturing country, for government to hear an SME's voice? Because the big guys, they can find 250 apprentices, no problem. Pick any of them, JLR, Rolls-Royce, whoever. They all have the talent pool. It's people that are here on the floor here, SMEs, that they have to invest the time and the money to train someone for 4 years, knowing that person's probably going to go and work for Rolls-Royce on 50% more. So I feel sorry for them. They are doing good for manufacturing because we're all training people to come in, but do we care enough? Have we got to wait until it's the JLRs of the world that can't employ people for someone in government to say, actually, we really need to invest in this and get more people in?
It actually applies to large companies as well. What I think the answer that I won't mention the name of the company, but a large company that I know of, it's not Siemens, they train their apprenticeship to a very high level. And then once they finish apprenticeship, they'd go somewhere else because they knew, the civil industry, they knew they paid more money. So they had to fix that problem. And the way they fixed it is they developed a strategy for apprentices, a long-term strategy, so they knew what they was going to earn for the next 10 years. So they knew guaranteed salary increases over the next 10 years. So there's more stability then, and they know exactly what level they're going to be at. And that worked by them. So they retain their apprentices that they've trained up. So that's one way of doing it. And SMEs possibly could do the same. Maybe put some restrictions in there because you've got to do certain things to be able to achieve this. But if you do, then this is the salary you could be earning. If they're adding enough value, then it's worth paying the money. So there's a few ways around it. In terms of funding models for SMEs, I think, well, we did a project many years ago with the AMSCI project, the supply chain initiative. We won it. We didn't win the money, Siemens, so the MTC got some of the money, and then our supply chain also got some money too. It was about using 3D CAD, so moving from 2D CAD to 3D CAD. So it was about skills, what the technology was, and how to use it. And so they got some of the money. MTC helped them build the skills. We were the recipient of the technology that they developed, but so were other companies as well. So the whole economy benefits from that. I think if they brought that sort of initiative back, so it's initiated by the big players like Siemens or the SMEs customers, but then you have to involve the SMEs as part of the funding project. That sort of thing I think could work.
Yeah, have the whole supply chain involved.
Yeah.
There's a word that you mentioned about retention. And I bring up a conversation that I had with another guest because I think it's valuable to people here and people that watch this episode. So there's a lady called Fiona McGarry who is on episode 13, which is out at the minute. She works for Ingenuity, and her job is around skills gap and working with manufacturers to understand how to retain young people. because from the conversation I had with it, I had the realization that I was probably the last cohort of age group that came through as an apprentice that get on the shop floor or whatever you're doing and just do it. That's changed now, and that's why we can't retain young people. And the conversation we had was actually these young people are looking for validation constantly.
Yeah.
So you can't just put someone on a workshop anymore and expect them to do something. You know, kids now have grown up. The stat is that Gen Z, 7 in 10 Gen Z kids have a mental health issue. So how do we support them? And it's validation is a huge thing that they grew up with social media of these likes and comments and how many views you get on things, and they need an arm around the shoulder all the time. I think that's quite an important thing about retention, is that especially for an SME, it makes the job even harder. You know, talent pool's small, and then you finally bring someone in and they leave because they haven't got a mentor that's showing them the way. I think them times have gone.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, we have lost some good people, graduates, and I think part of that, the reason were when they finished their qualification, we put them in a role that might have been interesting for a few weeks, but they got bored. So I think you have to keep them interested and bring new opportunities and challenge them sometimes, you know. I tell you what we did in our factory, which is like we're still doing now, is we had a junior factory. So within the drive, we manufacture variable speed drive. Within there's a little fan sub-assembly unit. We used to buy it in from abroad. So we said to our apprentices and graduates, right, can you make that part? Of course they said, yeah, of course we can. Said you have to engage the supply chain, you have to manufacture, you've got to employ people because they won't be available themselves all the time, and you have to hit targets. It's like a real manufacturing challenge within a factory. They would report back to the real MD every month, you know, with the figures and any challenges. And so those apprentices and those graduates learned skills that you would never learn in the university industry.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
And there was some pressure on them, you know, because if they didn't make that part, we didn't make drives. So that was a supply into our factory. So those are the sort of skills, and loved it. They were so proud of it afterwards. I mean, it was a challenge at the time, but afterwards, you know, they would talk about it to anybody because they were proud of what they'd done.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
You know.
But you mentioned skills. There's a scenario I ask in every episode is, imagine you're stood in front of a classroom of the next generation of engineers. What advice would you give them, and what skills do they need to succeed?
I think the biggest advice I could give would be embrace failure. And I know that sounds stupid. I don't mean go out there and fail on purpose, but I mean when you do fail, just embrace it, treating it as a learning exercise, but carry on and keep on trying. So it's like when some people are trying for lots and lots of jobs and they get to interview and they get turned down, and then they get turned down again, get turned down again. Every time, learn something from it and bounce back. Not easy to do. It's all right me saying that, but yeah, that's something I would definitely advise. So take that attitude. It's a learning exercise when you fail. Fail fast and carry on. So that's probably the best advice I can suggest. When we employ people from university or college, we're looking for the academic skills get us to the interview. After that, we're looking for differentiators. So going to the Scouts, air training corps, just hobbies, play the guitar, just do something on top of your normal schoolwork. And those are the differentiators that we're looking for when we're employing people. We're looking for hybrid skills. So it's very rare that we'll get a graduate that has all the right skills. So they might have qualifications in engineering, but they might not know about cyber security, they might not know about virtual reality. So our IT people now spend a lot of time on the shop floor, so they're learning engineering skills, so they're having to self-learn. Our engineers now working in virtual reality, very similar to the gaming industry, so they're having to relearn. So one of the things we've seen is we're always learning. It's what they call growth mindset. Even at my age, we're always learning. You know, so our ideal candidate was be somebody with hybrid skills. Very, very hard to find, but we're prepared to, you know, train them on the bits that are missing, basically.
Okay. I suppose that leads into the next lot of questions around building teams and the principles you look for in a person. I know you don't have direct reports anymore, but you've built teams over the years. What are you looking for in them interviews, the people that have been in industry for a long time?
Depends on the role, but quite often it's communication skills is really important. that can you work with other people, collaboration skills. We usually need people that can also present quite well with confidence, but also have that strong engineering background as well. That depends on the role, of course. But being able to communicate and engage with the people, you're good at team building. So that was part of the reason my son got the job at Bentley, because he could work with other people and do projects as a team. That's really, really important, engaging with other people. But yeah, I remember when I first started my job in robotics control gear, I was frightened of answering the phone. I mean, it might be different for kids nowadays, but I was really worried about answering the phone.
No, I think it's exactly the same for kids these days. Everyone texts, or even me, 30 years old. I don't cold call. I don't pick the phone up. I should, but I don't, because I've grew up texting and instant messaging. What's the hardest thing about managing people?
So the one big thing I learnt and failed at for a while is understanding each individual's drivers. Everybody has a different driver, a different need. So some of the people that work for me needed a phone call every day. If you didn't get that phone call from me every day, they thought they did something wrong. Almost like being micromanaged, but they wanted it. Then the other people that didn't want the phone call, just to be left alone, and they'd ring me if they needed any help. And I'd know if you're doing a good job or not. You find on the grapevine what's going on. So the art was to try and work out what the driver was to motivate each individual, and they were all completely different. Yeah. No one was the same. I don't know if they teach things like that at university, but it took me. It was self-learning by working with people to figure out what actually got the most out of them, and that took a long while. And I made a lot of mistakes as well. For example, if I was ringing the people that didn't want to be called every day, they'd start to tell me, you don't need to ring me every day, I'm getting fed up with this, So it's trying to figure out the drive, get under the skin of the individuals. And the other thing is empathy. So sometimes if an individual is doing something out of the norm, and they're not quite reacting the same way they normally do, don't just think that they're just fed up with the job and they want to leave. There might be a personal reason behind that. It could be a family reason, it could be a health reason, it could be anything. And I made that mistake once, told somebody off, and I found out it was a big problem in their family, and I completely regret that. So as a manager, you try and understand. They probably don't want to tell you, by the way. Mm-hmm. Try and understand if something has changed, why it's changed.
Having that empathy builds a relationship with that person over time anyway.
Without being too invasive, Okay.
I've got some closers, but I put it out to the audience. Has anyone got any questions? Does anyone want to ask Alan anything? Anyone? No? Yeah.
What's kept you at Siemens for so long?
What's kept you at Siemens for so long?
Why have I stayed at Siemens so long? Put these on. So yeah, I've been with Siemens 46 years, man and boy. I think with Siemens is such a diverse company. If you're prepared to go outside your comfort zone, there's lots of new opportunities for you. So I've worked all around the world with Siemens, Singapore, Germany, America, France, Poland. And it's partly because I was prepared to go outside my comfort zone and stretch myself. And I've also worked with lots of different parts of Siemens as well. Healthcare, different manufacturing facilities. So because it's such a diverse company, I've seen people go from commercial to technical to commercial, senior management. You can move completely roles within Siemens. I worked in Germany for a while. That was a challenge. So in the early 90s, I went to Germany to learn German, because in the early days, if you wanted to get on in Siemens, you had to speak German, believe it or not, which you don't today. So I went to Germany, spent 9 weeks learning German in Munich, and I really struggled, because my English was pretty bad, never mind my German. You had to be good at English grammar to be able to learn German grammar, and I didn't know the English grammar. So I figured it out in the end. The way I did it was basically don't be frightened of making a fool of yourself, just carry on talking, and eventually it becomes natural. But then I took my family over, and I put my children into a German school. They never spoke a word of German before. I had a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, no, 7-year-old, 5-year-old, 3-year-old. The oldest two went straight into German school, and I thought, they're going to hate me. I came home the first night. I said, how did you get on at school? He said, all right, Dad. I said, do you understand what they said? Some of it. Didn't bother them at all. They just carried on. Within 2 weeks, they were speaking German with all their friends. So it's that age where you can just absorb it and not be frightened of it. So that was a challenge, working in Germany, I think. But I just forced myself to talk all the time, and eventually it becomes more fluent. But there's a lot of people over there that were frightened to death of speaking German, and they didn't really develop very well. So yeah, I think it's quite diverse, well-known organisation, and I've grown with the company, I think.
Hopefully, you know, the conversation around skills is a real big one. Is anyone in the audience involved in that conversation? Do you have issues at your companies around attracting talent or retaining talent? Yep.
Not in my company, but in the businesses that we deal with. It's obviously in the Northeast, a lot of concern about basically skills being kind of diluted or into custom, with more investment in say offshore renewables, more investment in advanced manufacturing, like really high levels of expertise really in demand. Now we've got a situation where companies are poaching staff from each other rather than bringing new potential workforce. I just wondered if you had any thoughts really on that and that sort of situation, and what can be done to try to alleviate that a little bit.
Yeah. I'll repeat it for the for the podcast listeners. So how do we alleviate other companies poaching staff instead of just bringing up more talent?
Yeah, I think it depends on the individual whether they're money driven or job, the job satisfaction really drives them. And with youngsters, quite often it's a bit of both. If you can generate jobs that keeps their interest, quite often the money is secondary to a certain degree. Definitely with some of my sons, they're working in big companies like Bentley, and the job satisfaction is really important to them. And it's same with me. I mean, the job I'm in now, perfect for me, I love it. So I think what you need to do is try and give them some guarantee of what their end position is going to be, and try and paint a picture that suits what they're interested in. They need a route, and tell them how much they could earn as well. Because if you don't tell them that, they think they're going to be earning the same amount of money for the next 10 years, and they go somewhere else and they're going to earn more money straight away. But if they've got a plan of where they're going to be in the next 5-10 years, you've got a good chance of retaining them, But you've got to be a little bit creative, because your business will change over the years as well, and the technologies will change over the years as well. So try and be creative in where you think the type of roles that could exist in the future. These job titles might not exist today, by the way. Like for example, jobs in our factory have changed completely. 10 years ago we didn't have a virtual reality cave. Now we have people that are employed to work in that space. Didn't exist 10 years ago. So, and the problem that we've got now is innovation is accelerating at such a rate. It's very hard, A, for academia to keep up with it. B, it's hard for industry to keep up with it sometimes. And quite often industry are leading the way. And then the skills we need for it. We need to develop these skills to be able to adopt these new technologies. And it's the youngsters that have probably the ability to be able to use the new technologies as well. So it's painting that picture and giving them a long-term strategy of where they could go, with the different steps as well, what they need to achieve.
Yeah, I think it's the perfect answer. I look back on my early career, and there was a job that I left early because I was chasing the next thing, and I wanted someone to sit down and say, in 2 years' time you're going to be this, 5 years' time you're going to be this, and you could earn this amount of money. And I didn't get that, and I was blinded by money somewhere else, so I just moved. And I took another job for a big pay rise, threw myself in the deep end. I was lucky that I'd managed to swim, but it was more important for me to see that my career was going to go to this point quicker than an MD at another company wanted to show me. So I think your answer is correct, really. Anyone else before we do the closers? Yeah.
I'd be really interested to know about how Siemens look at future opportunities and technology horizon scanning and how you organise yourself internally.
Nice question. So we Siemens is quite often leads the way with technology. We've changed over the years. So Siemens used to be all about trying to do it ourselves. Believe it or not, when I was younger, Siemens tried to develop an operating system to compete with Microsoft. And it was a good solution, but there's no way, well, look where Microsoft are now, you know. So obviously that didn't work, but we try to do everything ourselves. Now we don't, we collaborate. We really find it important to collaborate. We can't do it in isolation. I'll give you a good example. So we've done a collaborative partnership with NVIDIA. I think they are the highest value company in the world now, I believe, NVIDIA. So they are great at doing photorealistic environments like the gaming industry. Siemens are great at doing simulation with the physics-based model simulation. So, you know, if a ball bounces, we know how far it's going to bounce and the impact on the ball, or a conveyor moving, the heat transfer properties, all of this sort of thing, air flows. We can model and simulate everything, all the physics-based stuff, but it's not photorealistic. So what we do, we've partnered with NVIDIA to look at what they call the industrial metaverse. So this is a photorealistic environment with all the physics-based modelling of Siemens capability. And you think that's a long way off. But you remember when they first started talking about Industry 4.0 and digital twinning, everybody said, no, it's not for me. It's happening now. And we've also, so when Roland Busch, our global CEO, actually sat down with Jensen Huang, who's the CEO of NVIDIA, they also sat down with the CEO of Mercedes. And what they said is every new factory they build will be built in the industrial metaverse before they put any bricks down. So you've got a combination of collaboration, a technology that could add value, and also a customer. And then there'll be others to follow. So we're trying to lead the way, but in collaboration, not in isolation, which is a big change to our company, I think, over the years.
Yeah, it's something that I've found actually as a startup, that it's much easier for me to collaborate than just disrupt.
Yeah.
Because we are a disruptor, but actually what we've found over the past 6 months is partnering with people like this show or Automate, Vara, PPMA, Ukiva. It gets you through the door, it gets conversations going, everyone can add value then, instead of just me trying to piss people off. Because that's what I do day to day.
Yeah.
Closes then. What's next for you? Do you think about retirement?
I probably should have retired about 2 years ago, but no, I made a big decision at the beginning of COVID. Both my parents passed away within a month of each other, and I had some inheritance and I didn't know what to do. I thought, shall I retire? The house I lived in, everything was done. So I decided to move to a bigger house where there's a lot of work he's doing, and I'm about halfway through it now. So that's a bit of a hobby for me. Digging holes and painting walls and all sorts of things. But I love my job. I absolutely love it. I've got a great boss. So what I said to my boss, I said, look, I'll carry on working as long as I've got my health, I've got a good boss, and I enjoy what I'm doing. So yeah, no sight of retirement yet. Okay. It depends also what the government decides to do with pensioners as well, I think.
Yeah. Do you consider yourself successful?
Yeah, I suppose so. Because I mean, in one respect, when I started at Siemens, there's no way I thought I'd ever be a professor. No chance. So you could say it's successful. I've got a job that I thoroughly enjoy. I think that's success. I've got a great family around me. My children are quite successful. So I've got 6 grandchildren. They're all pretty good. So yeah, successful in that respect, yeah, definitely. I thought I was going to run my own business, by the way. Yeah. I didn't. Doesn't mean I'm not successful though.
When you look at the success you've had over the years, do you attribute it to luck or to hard work?
Combination of the two. So there's been twice when I've nearly left Siemens, and it was just luck that I had either the right person supporting me, or I was at the right place at the right time. But there's been a lot of hard work in between, definitely. You know, you have to prove yourself to get on in life. And without all that hard work, I mean, when I was younger, I used to work long hours. I mean, sometimes I'd be there till 2 in the morning, still working, then starting off at 8 o'clock in the next day. When I used to work with Philip Morris on the Old Kent Road, I'd get up at 5 in the morning, travel down to the Old Kent Road, work on the machines, didn't get home till 11 at night. That was on a regular basis, you know. Probably couldn't do it now. But yeah, so a lot of hard work, a lot of travel, a lot of dedication. I've always enjoyed it.
Okay. That's it. You can relax now.
Nice done.
That's the end of the episode. Thank you. Thanks for being a guest. Thanks for doing it in front of an audience. First time I've done it in front of an audience. So thank you to all of you for sitting through it, not falling asleep. Appreciate it.
I wouldn't.
Cool. There we go.